If you think it's impossible that human society could have flourished over 100,000 years ago, then by the end of this video, you'll probably change your mind. Because when you look at how fast materials decay, how biased the archaeological record really is, and what few remains we do have, it becomes clear. Prehistoric culture may have been everywhere, but almost all trace of it is gone. Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Michael. I have a degree in ancient history, and on this channel, we discuss the unexplainable mysteries of our past. Let's get into it. Anatomically modern humans have been around for over 300,000 years, yet the part we actually call history, cities, writing, that's only the last 5,000. This means more than 98% of our existence comes before any written record. So what happened during all that time? The huge percentage of our past we loosely call prehistory. Did our ancestors really just sit around for hundreds of thousands of years, doing nothing much beyond stone tools, campfires, hunting and gathering? This idea is made even weirder by the fact that suddenly, around 3000 BC, after all this time, civilization supposedly sprung up, in multiple different places all at once, completely independent of each other. Egypt, Mesopotamia, South America, Central America, and China all developed civilization at roughly the same time, after we apparently failed to do so for over 300,000 years. That's bizarre. It's as if humanity was on pause for almost our entire existence, and then, everywhere all at once, suddenly hit fast forward. So it raises the question, were these really the first civilizations, or are they just the most recent ones, the ones that we can still see? Is it possible there were earlier experiments, even successful attempts, that rose, fell, and were wiped clean, hiding them so that we never even knew they existed? Now, many people will disagree with this idea. It sounds outlandish that something akin to civilization could have existed before recorded history. But when you actually delve into the arguments disputing this, they often don't quite add up. The traditional argument against this view has always been climate. In the story of civilization, the idea is that the onset of our current climate epoch, the Holocene, roughly 12,000 years ago, enabled agriculture and thus civilization to develop due to the warm and stable conditions we still enjoy today. But considering we have recently discovered our species is at least 300,000 years old, I would argue this point of view requires a rethink. Given our newly discovered age, we now know modern humans have lived through at least 4 distinct, stable, warm climate periods. And considering the argument has always been that it is these conditions that led to civilization, considering the fact we know civilization isn't a uniquely difficult invention due to its being developed in multiple places all at once during the Neolithic, what's to say it couldn't have happened before? It sounds crazy, but we've been around for a long time. So naturally, the next question is, where's all the evidence? This is where the preservation problem comes in. If a sophisticated human culture had risen, say 120,000 years ago, during the last interglacial warming period, known as the Eemian period, what would actually be left of it today? What could we possibly find to prove its existence? The answer is almost nothing. There's a brilliant book called The World Without Us that imagines Earth if humanity suddenly vanished. The author, Alan Wiseman, details how cities collapse shockingly fast. Within a few hundred years, bridges rust away, skyscrapers crumble, dams burst, and forests reclaim everything. And that's just centuries. Push that forward to 100,000 years and the traces of modern life are all but gone. But this isn't just fiction, the science backs it up. Metals like iron and steel corrode rapidly, with studies estimating complete degradation within a few thousand years due to oxidation and environmental exposure. Bronze, while more resistant, may persist up to 10,000 years in optimal conditions, but corrosion and erosion ultimately prevail. Aluminium and concrete, despite their durability, succumb within 10 to 20,000 years. Aluminium oxidizes and concrete weathers into fragments, dust, under prolonged environmental stress. Glass, while chemically stable, physically degrades into sand through fracturing and abrasion over long timescales, becoming undetectable as human-made artifacts. Plastics, while also persistent, break down into micro and nanoparticles, dispersing into soils and sediments, as shown in studies on long-term polymer degradation, again becoming almost indiscernible in the archaeological record. It's scary that even from our modern industrial civilization, the traces that would remain in 120,000 years would be scant. Take even pollution. The Romans 2,000 years ago were pumping out so much lead from smelting that it's still detectable today in Greenland's ice cores. But if a Roman-level industrial civilization has existed during the Eemian interglacial, we'd never know. The ice from that time has melted away. Sediment layers have been churned by floods, compressed or subducted. Over that huge timescale, chemical signals get diluted until they're indistinguishable from natural background fluctuations. The Earth always naturally belches metal into the atmosphere through events like volcanic eruptions. In other words, even if there was an Anthropocene-style pollution spike in the Eemian, today we'd likely misinterpret it as just another geological blip. Even if we could see that blip at all, we'd think it's a quirk of nature rather than a lost civilization. And if that industry was on a small, localized scale, as is far more likely, it would be utterly invisible today. So when we look back and declare with confidence that no civilization could have existed before 5,000 years ago, we're not speaking from a place of knowledge, we just have silence. But silence isn't evidence. Therefore, this means the possibility, however uncomfortable, is still on the table. Not proven, not disproven, just plausible. Now, to be clear, some things would survive. If we knew exactly when to look and what to look for, I think it would be possible to detect us in 120,000 years. For example, stone, carved stone, could survive. Think Mount Rushmore, the pyramids, and the few stone artifacts we do find from over 100,000 years ago. Another thing is our nuclear technology. We'd likely be able to see plutonium traces in the atmosphere from our nuclear weapons testing, as well as nuclear waste deposits. But just because a culture from the Eemian probably didn't have nuclear technology, doesn't mean they can't have been sophisticated. And when you look at the materials prehistoric humans likely were building with, the organic materials they could likely find in their environment like wood, hide and reeds, these things are so long gone by these timescales it's extremely unlikely we'd find anything at all. I mean, the evidence for how quickly decay happens is all around us. Just look at Chernobyl, which was abandoned less than 40 years ago yet already is getting swallowed by nature. Or Detroit, which showcases entire neighborhoods collapsing into rubble after just a few decades. And if our world looks like this in mere decades or centuries, just imagine 100,000 years. But as if the decay wasn't enough, there's another factor at play here. Nature itself is constantly hitting the reset button. There are vast natural forces that have struck throughout history with the power to wipe the slate clean. Plate tectonics mean that over time, entire continents get recycled. In periods of glaciation, ice sheets act like bulldozers. During the last ice age, glaciers thousands of meters thick scraped entire landscapes flat, erasing whatever stood there before. Sea level rise means that anything built near water, like humans have always done and still do today, would be totally erased. Coastlines are temporary. When the last ice age ended, sea levels rose over 120 meters, drowning ancient land. If a prehistoric New York or Shanghai existed, it would now be deep underwater, invisible to us. And then there's catastrophe. Supervolcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, cosmic impacts, and relentless erosion can wipe the Earth clean in an instant. The point is, our planet doesn't preserve the past, it destroys it. Which means that if you go looking for a 100,000+ year old culture, the odds are stacked against you before you even start. And here's the real kicker. Even if traces have somehow impossibly survived, our sample size from back then, 100,000+ years ago, is staggeringly small. Think about it. Homo sapiens have been around for over 300,000 years, yet archaeologists have only uncovered 9 sites worldwide that are older than 100,000 years. 9! Out of what must have been millions of camps, villages and gathering places to cover a time span of 200,000 years. But why so few? Well, because, as I've been saying, survival is so rare. You need the perfect storm. A cave that protects artifacts, desert sands that dry them out, or a volcanic eruption that entombs them in ash. Without that, everything vanishes. And here's the bias. What survives is mostly stone tools, which means our entire picture of prehistory is filtered through whatever happens to be the most durable. If an advanced culture once existed, using materials that didn't survive deep time, we'd likely never see it. But archaeologists often fall into a trap. We haven't found evidence, so it didn't exist. Yet, statistically, evidence almost never survives. So the silence of the record doesn't prove nothing was there. It just proves how little passes the test of time. Now, to be clear, obviously none of this is proof that an advanced human civilization existed in the deep past. Far from it. But the point I'm trying to get across is this. It would be almost impossible to see it anyway. The archaeological record is brutally biased. Out of all the possible sites that may have existed, only a handful survive from beyond 100,000 years ago. And yet, even in that tiny fraction, we do see things. We see flashes of astonishing sophistication. At Colombo Falls, 476,000 years ago, humans built wooden structures that show planning and engineering, an incredible example of preservation that displays obvious intelligence and poses the question, how many similar structures were there? Or at Bolombos Cave from 100,000 years ago, where people engraved abstract designs in ochre and made compound paints, clear signs of sophisticated culture. These aren't the behaviors of simple minds, they're the surviving fingerprints of complex, intelligent societies almost lost to time. But again, it's not impossible. We could detect traces of ourselves if we knew exactly what to look for and exactly where to look. But here's perhaps the most important point of all. We are always looking for ourselves in the past. We expect to find skyscrapers, steel blades, or carved inscriptions because those are the hallmarks of our story. Yet humans are incredibly adaptable, and a flourishing civilization might have looked nothing like our own. Imagine a society whose architecture was almost entirely wood and earth, gone in a geological blink, or one that relied on perishable organics, plants, resins, fibers, even fungi as their main technologies, leaving behind nothing recognizable to us. What if their lighting was bioluminescent rather than electrical? What if their roads were waterways? What if their great gathering places were seasonal camps designed to dissolve back into the landscape? Even their markers of identity and memory might have been carried in song, ritual, or dance rather than in stone and text. A civilization like that could have been every bit as complex and intelligent as ours, but after 100,000 years, it's invisible. The danger is that by searching only for reflections of ourselves, we risk overlooking the fingerprints of very different but equally sophisticated human worlds. And maybe that's the deeper mystery. History may not be a straight line from caves to cities. It may be a cycle, with cultures rising, falling, and vanishing, lost to time, leaving us to wonder whether we were truly the first, or just the first we remember. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like or a comment, or subscribing to my channel. See you next time.